All right. We got one last one. Let's have you open up on yours. You want to go ahead?
Yeah. So Senator Bernie Sanders, independent from Vermont, and Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat from New York, are trying to get some legislation going on ESOPs, which is I'll read this right from the article here. This is from The Intercept, written by Rachel Cohen on December 26, 2018. It's a retirement vehicle that allows a business owner to sell their company stock to a trust co-owned by the company's employees. The company typically purchases the owner's share with a loan, divides the shares amongst the staff, and then repay the debt annually with pre-tax payments from the company's profits. When a worker leaves or retires, the company buys back that worker's stock at fair market value, giving them a slice of the company's capital earnings. And hopefully, the goal here is what this does is it gives employees a chance to own and a chance to be a larger part of the day-to-day earnings of the company, specifically when it comes to retirement.
Right.
And if I go down to the bottom, there was a correction on this article. I don't know if you saw it, Cyril, but
I did not.
The correction is pretty significant. This
wow.
article has been updated to reflect that workers at ESOP companies, this plan that they're trying to advance here, have retirement accounts that are 2.2 times, not 2.2%, larger than those workers at traditionally owned companies.
Oh, so I thought I read 2.2 times.
Okay,
so
I read it as 2.2%, which initially was like
tiny.
Like
that's
right,
tiny.
Is it worth all of this for 2.2%? But it's 2.2 times earnings, which when it comes to retirement might be the difference between being able to not work at Walmart and to enjoy your retirement.
Yeah.
So, the reason why I brought this one to the table was because of specifically a semi-disagreement Cyril and I had probably about a week or two ago. Actually, I think Chad was on your side on that
it's
one.
It's a continuing pod theme. Yep.
When it comes to
with all three of us, yeah.
Right, when it comes to employees specifically, when it comes to unions, and I felt like, and I've said this before, I'm not a super big fan of unions. I feel that they have bigger problems than they do actual solutions today.
Especially when they get too big. Sure.
Hold on. Today is my specific thing. You come to me back in the 70s or even before then. I think that they did a ton of good. But all the good
I don't know what the difference is now, but okay.
Well, I don't think they're as much needed anymore when it comes to specific things. But anyway, that's a whole other.
Sure. Yeah.
Specifically, what we're talking about is how employees can be more a part of the company and be able to share in the capital gains of that company. This is a way to me that makes sense. The downside to it right now, and the only downside, is the fact that ESOPs are complicated vehicles, and typically speaking, when an owner sends, because there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of laws that are in place that you have to make sure that you're not breaking laws, so that your company doesn't get a fine or things like that.
In what way though? Why?
It's a little more complicated.
Okay.
I don't understand.
If it is complicated, then it's only because of the bullshit that's been written by the government. This shouldn't be complicated. I don't give a shit if like this is great. Like, have your employees profit from the overall profits of the company.
Here, I'll read.
Why should an overall owner take 100% of the profits? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, employees put a lot of time, blood, sweat, and tears into that company as well. Everybody should share in it. I'm not asking for the owner to have the same percentage as every other worker. Nobody's asking for that. But this sounds great. Like, it sounds like ESOPs bridge the disconnect of the profits only going to the owner.
Well, I think that's why Sanders and Gillibrand are trying to get this legislation through, is to make it a more well-known and less complicated thing.
And I wrote this, and really quickly, I wrote this, and I don't know why I didn't follow up on it. Yep. And I want to hear what you want to say if you followed up on it.
Sure.
It said in the article, successful model in Vermont already. I wrote, maybe we can look this up. What does the Vermont model look like? But because you had said that, I just wanted to say, yeah, it from the article, it said that there is a successful Vermont model already. So
there's a few things that can be risky with it, right? In the article, it talks about how most people with ESOPs also have 401k, right? And the reason why is because you want to make sure that your entire fate is not tied up into one company.
Yep.
right? Heaven forbid that company goes back. And of course, this article uses the worst example ever, which is Enron. But
It just used the most extreme one, but yeah, go ahead.
it is the most extreme one, hands down. But if we keep going down, there's this gentleman, Rogers, from the National Center for Employee Ownership. He has a few theories why ESOPs aren't more well known. Some of it he chalks up to the incentives of the business advisor world. Right? If you're a broker, like an investment banker or personal wealth advisor, the fees you take home at the end of the day would be higher if you encourage your client to sell their company to a private equity firm.
That makes me not happy.
Rather than your employees. Which, okay, so now we can point something out. Why is it? And I haven't done the research on this, but that would be a question, right? Why is the advisor getting more money if he sells it to an investment banker or a private equity firm or something like that? I don't know the answer to that, but apparently they do. Financial advisors also tend to advise owners on things that they know how to do. ESOPs are highly regulated, complex structure. If you as a CPA advise a business owner to sell to their employees, you're probably advising them on something you personally don't know how to do. That's a problem, right?
Yeah, but that's only a problem because these people have been taking the money and not also balancing that with doing the right thing as far as like, hey, these employees need.
But as someone who's offering
share in the
financial
profits.
advice, hold on, someone who's actually offering that advice, if they've never been a part of an ESOP, if they've never been educated on how they work, that would be a problem, because if I don't know them, I'm not going to advise you to do that because I don't know.
Then how about this? How about if the government thinks this will be a lot better, then do it, and mandatory education, the government will pay for it because the government sees it as a benefit to workers. So the government can say,
hey, I don't think that's the best way to go about it. I think the best way to go about it is make ESOPs the more financially apt method of selling your company.
So you would regulate and structure so that ESOPs are
the easy choice.
Then I actually agree with that too. That would be a solution as well.
Because I think that's more incentive. Because if
you're about to go hard in like a disagreement mode here, but no, dude, I agree with that.
Because you and I come from a perspective of, you think that, and it's not wrong. I merely see this. You think that education, right, or having the government educate people on what something is, so that way there's more exposure, is your way of trying to get to solve a problem. And I'm not disagreeing with it. I think the more practical way...
Basically, yes, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm paraphrasing. I think, to me, typically speaking, the practical way of doing it is finding what the actual incentives are for people and changing it so that they are more likely to make that choice than the other.
The question's not what's more effective, because yours is more effective. Like, if you're going to regulate and structure society and say, we're making this decision because we think this will be better for us, that's fine. But that means you are controlling a little bit.
You are. So I'm not disagreeing. You're right.
And I would, especially in the age of Trump, I always lean towards education because I don't know who our leadership is. Might we have great leadership sometimes that would point us in the right direction and could structure things and we can trust them? Maybe, yes. But, there's a lot of times we just have grifters and these people get in office that are just like doing things for themselves. Right. And so I don't trust that. And so I'd rather just education. Look, and that also makes me the kind of person that accepts that we can't make things perfect. Get over it. Like, we have to work with reality. So there's a lot of that going on there.
True. But here, this next paragraph is where my explanation comes into play, I feel like. Mm-hmm. From the owner's perspective, selling one's company to an outside firm is generally going to be a more lucrative option and often easier than creating an ESOP. And it's hard for the business owner to say no to more money. Right?
And I don't blame them.
So to me, that's
where the structuring comes in.
That incentive, right, where it's better for you if you sell it back to the employees as opposed to a private equity firm.
Right.
That's to me where you would be able to make that change to make it more palatable.
If you can identify a public good for your constituents, that if you put a little government power behind it would help it, then sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
Further complicating ESOPs, there's some scandals that unfortunately happened. So when United Airlines went bankrupt, some employees had ESOP stock that was crap, and in some other cases...
Well, is that a scandal, or is that just like that's why you have a 401k, right? That's why you diversify?
Right? True, but maybe... I don't know the details of this specifically, but they point out that specific... I think they called it a scandal just because it went bankrupt and there was an ESOP associated with it. So I don't know if it's really scandal per se, but that's just how they wrote it. And in some other cases, owners who sold their company to employees had their businesses assessed at way too high of a value. So when they sold their shares, they made off like bandits and left the workers paying an outsized loan. That's a real okay. That makes sense.
It's a huge problem. Yeah.
It continues on. The Labor Department has been cracking down on that overvaluation issue.
Them over, right?
Well, apparently the Labor Department has done something about it, and ESOP advocates say worker safeguards have grown to be far more defined. But at the same time, that right there also might be the reason why it's more lucrative to sell to a private equity firm, because you've got to go now through the Labor Department to prove that your business is valued in X and X and X amount of dollars because of X, Y, and Z, whereas a private equity firm would be responsible for that.
But that still makes me sick that like, oh, when it's a whole bunch of workers, they'll come in and make sure it's right. But when you're just, because think about it, if you're selling it and it's overvalued, you're still getting screwed. Maybe it's not the workers at that point, but if you're selling it and it's overvalued, that person who's buying it might be getting screwed. Like someone still gets screwed in that.
Sure, but at the same time, there's also speculation too.
Crack down on, figure that out.
There's also speculation too, though, that people engage in, and that's what's great about America is that you can do that if you want. You're completely on your own if you want to do something like that. Go for it. You want to spend $1 million to buy a hamburger? Go for it. No one's going to stop you.
Every time I hear about like integrity issues in our world, and I hear about like gerrymandering integrity issues and stuff like that, I'm like, just create a panel that has people from all sides and like make them come to an agreement. Like get an independent panel and just get in there and that's nonpartisan and figure it out. Like that, like don't put these partisan idiots in charge of things that are like, come on,
everyone's partisan. And this isn't. We're not.
Everyone is partisan, but that doesn't mean you can't get together a panel of everybody and say like, guess what? You can't. You have to make a decision, and that kind of forces people to find somewhere. It's just I don't know.
But we're not even talking about a partisan thing. You're talking about one person selling a company to somebody else at too high of a value.
Well, no, I know.
Some people would call that being a good salesman, So.
Yes, and there are certain ways in which that would ring true without being morally bankrupt. But there are also ways where that's morally bankrupt, and like I don't know.
Yeah, but at the same
time, that's why the context always matters. Of course, it does.
It does. But
that's why we need to have an independent, like reviewing body that I don't know. It costs money, but. What does that even mean? It doesn't have to be government. It doesn't have to we have markets already of reviewing things like Yelp and the Better Business Bureau. There's all kinds of things that just a free market will.
All right.
Yeah.
The Better Business Bureau.
I think that's government maybe, but I don't know.
I don't think it is.
Maybe not. Maybe it works with them too.
I've had personally very poor experiences with the Better Business Bureau. When I was working at a small IT company not too long ago, we had reached out to them to set up like for people to give feedback and whatever.
Okay.
They charge a ton of money to make sure that your rating is A+.
And it could be. And look, this is the other side of a free market. You could rise to power by having integrity, but then once you're so big, things can be corrupt. That happens with big governments, come on, we always talk about this, right? So it wouldn't surprise me that the BBB got to where they were because they had integrity and like people could trust them and they spread because of that. But then at some point it changed and new leadership took over and they just took advantage. I believe it.
I get you. Right. But I would use another one just as a joke. Mm-hmm. Who's JD Power? Do you know who JD Power is?
JD Power and Associates, that Chevy's.
Why the fuck do they hand out so many awards for the bullshit thing?
They hand out awards for like.
Have you seen that Chevy commercial? All models based on 2015. Then why are the 2018 models out? Why are you making JD Power awards all over your commercial for 2015 when you have 2018 models on the commercial?
I wrote one more thing. I want to hear what you think before we end this.
Sure.
This is from the article. Sobering statistics about growing wealth inequality, like that the top 10% of households owns 80% of the financial assets and the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 95% combined, underscore the need for economists, activists, and policymakers to figure out ways to counteract these trends. And what I want to say about that is I think that's correct generally, right? Like generally, I think that's correct. I do think that we can do better with inequality. I think that we have some issues with explosive growth and explosive wealth and distribution issues, whatever. But what I said was, I'm afraid that some of us in our society don't even agree with that. I feel like there is a large amount of people who would even disagree that inequality is like a problem right now. And I think that is super difficult for the conversation, because if you can't even agree on that base problem, like there's nothing to talk about. If you get to just say there's no inequality problem, this is how things should look, and you get to just say that, it's like, I don't know, like that's, I think there's a lot more people than we think, or I think at least. There's just a lot of people that are like that. So I don't know. Like, I feel like if there was like let's say Bernie is a candidate for president in 2020 and he's like railing against inequality, there's probably enough people that are just like, oh, socialist, and it's not even an issue. And, I don't know. I could be wrong. Any thoughts or no?
That's a tough one, man, for me. Just because I certainly wouldn't say that inequality is not a problem by any means. Inequality is absolutely a problem. I think that from the perspective that you're coming from, the one thing that I think makes America also so great is the fact that even though you're dirt ass poor, you can still have some pretty legit and potentially real dreams of aspiring of moving up in social class, or financially, I should say,
I
in your
agree.
economic class.
Of course, I agree with that. Yeah.
And I think that's why people tend to ignore some of our inequalities, because we do have a bit more freedom than most. It's certainly not absolute, but we have more freedom than most for people to move in and out of certain socioeconomic classes.
And I agree. And really quickly, I have high hopes, not for government to be able to one day make society such that every single person in our country has basic needs fulfilled, but technology. Because as we create more wealth and get better at manipulating our environments, even the poorest among us might have enough food, water, shelter someday. That's what I dream about. And I feel like technology will get us there much more so than government will, or like redistribution will.
Yeah, I mean, certainly.
Yeah.
You're 100% correct. I think what's interesting, though, is what happens to our society when we all are decently fed, clothed, and have shelter and water, right? What happens then to our society? That's what I find interesting thinking about.
Well, your base needs should be fulfilled, and then after that, that's where you compete on a scale, right? Like that's my dream world. Everybody has their basic needs fulfilled, and then from there you compete for more. And now that means we basically live in a society where there's such extreme wealth that we could provide for everybody, even on that basic scale, which, let's be honest, right now we don't, well, not that we couldn't, but we don't do well with, for the whole world. We don't. So we might never get to that day.
I disagree. I think we will, just because of technology.
Maybe.
My fear is that
That's
technology falls into the hands of the few.
Right, and that's right. That's a problem too.
Fortunately, at least typically speaking, most people who work in technology become rich so quickly that they don't become hardened conservatives. That's been a theory I've heard before, right? Back in way back in the day, people were born and grew up as liberals, and then as soon as they had some money in their older years, they became conservatives.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at look at a Mark Zuckerberg, look at a Bill Gates, like these guys became billionaires overnight. They didn't have the time to become hardened to the idea of how taxes work and how the government's screwing.
Can I just say,
they just became so rich that it didn't matter to them. Is it interesting?
Can I just say, though, I super bristle at that, because, like, and I'm not trying to sit on my high horse, but this is literally how I think. Like,
sure, get off your high horse first of all.
You should be just. You shouldn't be this person that, like, all of a sudden is like liberal then conservative on taxes just because it benefits you. Like, nobody has integrity. That makes no sense to me.
Well,
Like,
what do you mean?
there will never be, I promise you right now, as I sit here, I will be successful doing something in some way in my lifetime. There's just too much here. Boom, it's going to happen. All right.
Okay.
But even when that happens, even as we get there, for you, you're already very successful. Your family's getting there. As we get there, like, I don't have a problem with like paying taxes and not evading and like giving back and like understanding that people need help and that like if I am privileged, then I should pay a little more. I can enjoy my privilege, but pay a little more so that everybody has the same equality of opportunity to get where I am. Like nobody understands that. Everybody who gets rich just all of a sudden
No,
wants to
I
just
think
fight to like keep all their money. That's
no.
crazy. Go ahead.
I think people understand that, but I also think that people who become wealthy also have a sense of, well, I know what the fuck I'm doing because I'm wealthy, and the government has no idea how to spend this money, so I don't want to give them this money. I'd rather do it my own way. Look at Bill Gates. Yeah, sure, he pays taxes, but look at all the work he does outside of the government. Why does he do that? He does it because he doesn't think the government knows what the fuck they're doing. And I think generally speaking,
I have
that's
a
how a
lot
lot
of
of people
argument
are.
against that.
Okay.
Social Security has never missed a payment. There's been so many things that this government has
Yeah,
done.
yeah, hold
This
on. You're
government
talking about
built,
Social Security.
so
What
that just
stuff
makes
is?
I bristle at that shit. Go ahead.
But that's true. You look at it from the perspective of somebody who's ultra competitive and been extremely successful in every aspect of their life, right?
I would argue the
They're
American government is one of those things that has been extremely successful
I'm
and
not
like
saying it
done great
hasn't.
things. Sure.
I'm not saying it hasn't, but when I look at it from the perspective of myself, let's say I become the CEO of a huge telecoms corporation and I make millions of dollars a year and I'm super successful and I've built this company from the ground up and blah blah blah, right? Fill in all the blanks. Me as a person singularly believe at that moment most likely that I could probably do things better than most people, right? That's a natural way of humans perceiving themselves. And because of that, a lot of today, at least, a lot of richer people, like a Warren Buffett, like a Bill Gates, like Mark Zuckerberg, are spending time doing non-government organizations work. You know, Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation. What do? Don't they do vaccines and water and food to all sorts of poor countries and education? They do that because they think the UN doesn't do a good job at it. They do that because they want to spend that money the way they see fit, not the way that the government sees fit. You know, I'm trying to think and look at it from a perspective of their, viewpoint, and that's where I kind of land on
Okay.
that. You know,
And
I'm
let
not
me
saying
respond. Let me
okay, go ahead.
respond to that viewpoint. And oh my goodness, here I go. Okay. Look, you're gonna be born and raised in this country.
Yeah,
Be Bill Gates, be Steve Jobs, be any of these people that has created
sure.
tremendous wealth, be is Jeff Bezos, whoever. You're gonna look around you. You're gonna go through public school, private school, whatever. You're gonna go through school. You're gonna learn about the history of this country. You're gonna learn about all the great people that have come through, all the
Mm-hmm.
shoulders we stand on. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna travel on the roads that we've built through the
Mm-hmm.
government that has done tons of things for hundreds of years. And you're gonna do one thing that creates a ton of wealth, and you're gonna look around and sniff your farts so fucking hard that you're gonna act like you're better than that and talk about how, oh, I shouldn't have to do this because I think I can do better than hundreds of years of American history of some of the greatest people we've known, a government that has fought for human rights, for all of these things, and you're going to breathe your farts in a room so hard that you think you're better than that? I can't. That's all. I can't.
That's fair, but our president is also Donald Trump.
That's fine though. Whatever we vote, whatever we've created.
No, I get that. I get where you're coming from, but I think you're missing the ultra competitive mentality of people who become that wealthy. They don't become that wealthy just because they're sitting on their couch by themselves all fucking day. You know, look. All right, I'll use another example. What
that's
about
such a
LeBron
myth.
James? How do you feel about LeBron James?
He's a good dude. That's built a good for him. Like,
yeah, who's built
just
a huge
like
empire.
I feel the same about LeBron James that I do for Jeff Bezos, for a Bill Gates.
Sure,
These people have done things that have created tremendous amounts of wealth.
Right.
And that's okay. That is perfectly fine. Markets are a wonderful thing. Building companies are a wonderful thing. Especially these people create jobs. They do give back a lot. They do. It's just, I'm pushing back against that mentality. If what you're saying is right, I'm pushing back against that extremely, what I see as very selfish mentality that is just seen as even though I have created tremendous wealth in a modern society just by doing one or two things really well, and it's a big complex society. Nope. that just means I'm better than everybody else and I can do things better than this whole thing that we've built. That's what I'm pushing back on. I'm pushing back on that
Sure,
selfishness.
I'm
They should
not
not be that selfish.
okay. I
You
mean,
should pay your taxes to the American government that has done great things, not perfect, but will continue to do things better than every other country on this planet. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I just get frustrated with that selfish mentality.
But okay, so
Um,
as I was saying before, right, with LeBron James, why is he creating a private charter school in Cleveland and giving free education to kids?
he built a
Why?
public school in Akron.
Okay, public
Um,
school, sure.
it is a public school. It is
Okay,
in Akron.
okay. Well, why wasn't that money distributed amongst the entirety of America for education? Why just there?
You're gonna I mean, we can go ahead and talk about the cost of that school and about spreading it to everybody in America, but that really
Well,
doesn't seem
why
that
does
effective
Cleveland get it? Why does Akron get it? I mean,
because he's from there.
well, that's not
That's
fair
the
to
problem.
everybody else. How dare he
That's
make that
ridiculous.
assumption and say,
But
well,
but, but why are
that's
you even saying that? What are you pushing back against?
I'm just making a point here. It
What
sounds
is the
like you
point?
don't like when people spend their money where they want to spend it.
That's not what I'm saying.
Oh,
Good for
okay.
LeBron for opening a public school and trying to do
But
better.
why aren't you
What I'm
saying that
saying is
about Bill Gates? Why aren't you saying that about anybody else who does the same
and Bill
thing?
Gates has done. And how about this? Bill Gates has done. Let's
Okay.
definitely not throw Bill Gates under the bus. Let's definitely not throw Warren Buffett under the bus. People who have given and pledged to give a lot of their wealth away.
Right.
You know, they have pledged to give all their wealth away.
Right.
Because what is inheritance but privilege, right? So they've pledged to give a lot of their wealth away, and I respect them for that. I'm more talking about the society we built and these people that we don't talk about that do have a lot of money that get away with not giving it any of it back because they sniff their own farts, and that's fine because you think you can do better. But a lot of these people probably don't even donate their money. Like, human beings are selfish, right?
You're
All I'm talking about
100% correct.
is
I hear you.
yeah, like we have to admit reality, and that reality is human beings are selfish. What does that mean? That means we have to assume that unless we're hunting the taxes that these people are supposed to pay, they're going to try to get away with not paying it. And if you think that every dime that's not paid towards taxes is done in good faith and given to charities, that's fucking stupid. That's not the
what
case.
I'm trying to imply.
No, I know that's not, but I'm just emphasizing my point with that. It's like,
Sure.
come on, like, don't be so selfish. This is a selfish mentality. It seems like a privileged mentality to me. And that's okay to be someone who claims that they've worked hard to get where you are, because most people probably have. Come on, we're still part of a team here. Pay taxes. Government does good things. We pay for schools. We pay for, come on. You can't do that all on your own. Just like you said, LeBron James can't finance all of public schools on his own. Obviously, that's why we have the government. That's why you should pay your taxes. LeBron James has paid his taxes. He doesn't complain about that. At least I haven't heard
that.
Of course he has, or else he'd be in
probably
jail.
gotten out of paying a lot of taxes.
Maybe because he's rich. That's not wrong. Right. That's absolutely correct.
But you're saying, well, okay, never mind.
No, that's right. I mean, but I mean, I would say probably he has paid his taxes because his character and what he's done in his public life makes it seem like he has. But it doesn't mean he has. But still, it's the point of, like, pay your taxes because it does good things, and you should be willing to invest back in your society. We live in these times, especially in these Donald Trump times, and I'm not trying to call him out specifically, but we do live in these times where people feel like I shouldn't have to pay taxes at all. I've earned this. Like, stop playing. Look at our history. Paying taxes should be almost a noble cause. It shouldn't be abused, of course not, but you should be proud of investing in infrastructure and in education and in all these wonderful things that make our country better for tomorrow. What's going on with this selfish mentality? It's disgusting.
Yeah, but that's always been people. That's just people. That's people.
Yeah, but how do you think we got educations? That was a public school. How do you think our parents even existed? Mom got SSD a lot. Okay,
I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, I know you're not. I'm going on a rant here.
I know.
No, it's not towards you. It's not. It really isn't.
I'm merely attempting to explain why people feel the way they do, and they feel privileged because they grew up here. That's the side effect of being born in America. You think you're owed something that you're not.
Dude, and how about this? Even the poorest among us is privileged compared to other people on this planet. Yes, they are. Certainly. And I absolutely understand that, and I agree. I wish we had more of a team mentality, not a communist one. But we do live in these times that feel very selfish.
It's okay.
What's that?
I said it's okay to admit that you're a commie.
No, I do feel like
Oh, I
we live
know.
in these times that are very selfish. It feels selfish, and it feels like a lot of
Well,
people would rather not even pay a dime in taxes. It's
listen,
like, do you know what you're investing in? Come
it
on, it's
feels
not.
it. I hear you. It feels
Yeah,
selfish now,
it
but
does.
it's always been selfish. That has never changed,
I
whether you want to
know.
admit it or not.
No, I know.
It's
Human
never
nature.
changed, right?
I know.
And I think the
But we have
thing
to
that
work.
puts a sour taste in people's mouth is this idea that politicians get to spend all that money on a lavish office and all the bullshit that they don't need, which has happened once or twice. It has. But
Go ahead.
because you have those things like that, people think of it's unfortunate, but it's true.